In the cold, unforgiving vacuum of space, a lone human refugee ship drifted. Its hull bore the scars of a recent battle, lights flickering like a dying star. Inside, thousands of souls, families, children, the elderly fled from a home world now turned to ash. They were the last survivors of a burning colony, their only hope, a slow journey across the dark. But they were not alone. Lurking in the shadows, a predator watched. An alien warship, sleek and menacing, belonged to the Zorak Dominion, a species forged in pride and baptized in war. On its bridge, Commander Varkon stood, his red eyes fixed on the vulnerable human vessel. To him, humans were an interesting, yet ultimately inferior species. Stubborn, brave, but weak. Today, he was certain they would bend to his will. "Open a channel," Varkon commanded, his voice sharp with authority. The holoscreen flickered to life, revealing not a panicked refugee captain, but the calm, steady face of human Admiral Rafe. He stood on the bridge of a powerful battleship, a stark contrast to the civilian ship. His vessel was polished, armed, and ready. A cruel smile touched Varkon's lips. "Human Admiral," he began, his tone dripping with false magnanimity. "Show some compassion. Surrender the refugee ship. They have trespassed into our territory. By our laws, they now belong to the Zorak Dominion." Admiral Rafe's expression didn't change. He simply looked tired, as if the weight of countless wars rested upon his shoulders. "Compassion?" he repeated, his voice quiet, yet it sent a shiver through the bridge of both ships. A small, sharp smile appeared on his face. "That ship is carrying our civilians. If you want them, you'll have to go through us." Varkon's amusement vanished. He leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "You cannot win, human. You have one battleship. We have a fleet of 9. Rafe seemed almost bored by the threat. "Look again," he said flatly. Before Varkon could question him, alarms blared across the Zorak bridge. Lights flashed red. The main sensor screen expanded, showing dozens of new contacts appearing from hyperspace. One after another, human warships emerged, silent, precise, and lethally fast. The entire human 7th Fleet materialized from the void, a storm of steel and purpose. The Zorak officers stared, their confidence shattered. Human intelligence never suggested such a massive fleet was in this sector. Varkon clenched his fists. "They planned this," he hissed. His second-in-command whispered in awe. "Sir, they came to protect civilians." "It's what humans do." On the human flagship, Admiral Rafe stood firm, but a deep worry shadowed his eyes. "Keep weapons cold," he ordered. His captain hesitated. "Sir? With our numbers, we could end this right now." Rafe shook his head. "There's something else out there. Something much worse." The captain was confused, but obeyed. Across the entire human fleet, weapon systems powered down. This single act of de-escalation sent shockwaves through the Zorak fleet. Varkon stared at the screen in disbelief. "You power down your guns? Are you insulting my honor?" Rafe's gaze wasn't on the alien commander. It was fixed on the empty, dark space behind the Zorak armada. "Varkon," he said, his voice grave, "you need to leave this area. Immediately." The alien commander laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Leave? Why? Because you're afraid to fight?" "No," Rafe replied quietly. "Because something is coming." Before another word could be spoken, every ship, human and alien, was rocked by a piercing sensor alert. A single unified warning screamed across every bridge. Unknown energy signature. Unknown vessel approaching. Unknown threat. The fabric of space behind the Zorak fleet began to ripple like disturbed water. A colossal shadow bled into existence. A void within the void, silent, lightless, and ancient. It radiated an aura of pure hunger. On both human and Zorak bridges, officers froze in primal fear. Varkon could only whisper, "What is that?" For the first time in his life, true fear crept into his voice. Admiral Rafe finally met his gaze on the screen. "That," he said, "is why we powered down our weapons." "Explain," Varkon demanded, his voice cracking. Rafe's face was grim. "This enemy? It hunts aggression. It's drawn to violence, to the energy signatures of active weapon systems. It feeds on chaos." He stared into the darkness, his voice low but clear. "And it has been watching us. All of us." The unknown vessel grew larger, its monstrous metallic form resolving from the shadows. It dwarfed every ship present. Its hull was a tapestry of strange, unsettling symbols. No windows, no visible engines. It was a thing that should not be. Then, a cold, dead voice echoed directly inside every mind on every ship. "You are in violation of our zone. Prepare for removal." Panic erupted on the Zorak ships. Varkon screamed, "Raise shields, fire at will," but it was useless. Their systems were dead, disabled by an unseen force. On the human flagship, Rafe remained calm, but the tension was palpable. "Varkon, listen to me," he snapped. "If we fight each other, that thing will annihilate us both." The alien commander slowly turned his terrified gaze back to Rafe. You knew this was here?" Rafe gave a single, sharp nod. "We detected its presence months ago. We formulated a plan. But for any of us to survive, we have to work together. Now." Varkon's warrior pride warred with his instinct for survival. "The Zorak do not ask for help." But as the unknown vessel sent its final message, "Surrender your ships," a chilling silence fell. Both commanders, human and Zorak, stared into the abyss, knowing their time had just run out. The unknown vessel drifted forward like a silent nightmare. No engines, no lights, no living sound. Only a dark pressure that made every human and Zorak soldier feel small and hunted. On the Zorak flagship, Commander Varkon's claws tightened around the metal railing. He had fought many wars. He had defeated many enemies. But this thing felt wrong. It felt ancient, like a predator waking up after thousands of years. The cold, disembodied voice returned, echoing in their minds. "You have entered restricted space. All armed ships will be removed." The Zorak crew trembled. Humans stayed silent. And Admiral Rafe finally breathed out, slow and calm. "Now you see," he said to Varkon through the holoscreen. "This is not a normal enemy. It watches anger. It reacts to aggression." Varkon snapped, his voice a low growl. "Why did you not warn us?" Rafe's gaze was steady. "Would you have listened?" The question cut like a blade. Varkon opened his mouth to argue, but the unknown vessel suddenly sent a blast of blue energy across the entire battlefield. It wasn't an attack. It was a scan. A deep, invasive scan that touched every system, every heartbeat, every brain. Human screens flickered. Alien screens shut off completely. Panic spread like wildfire. Varkon's voice cracked. They disabled our reactors. They disabled ours too, Rafe said quietly. But not fully. They're testing us first. The unknown ship continued its silent observation. Its surface shifted like liquid metal, with strange shapes moving across its hull, almost like eyes watching each ship, judging them. Admiral Rafe's captain whispered, "Sir, it feels alive." Rafe didn't answer. His mind was racing, piecing together the data. This enemy didn't want territory. It didn't want prisoners. It didn't even want peace. It wanted control. Suddenly, a Zorak cruiser next to Varkon's flagship simply exploded, but not from a weapon, not from fire. It was erased, as if cut out existence. The battlefield went silent, frozen in shock. Varkon's voice shook. What did it do? Rafe's face tightened. It judged the ship as hostile. Its weapon systems were still active. The unknown vessel spoke again, its voice chilling them to the bone. Conflict detected. Removing unstable vessels. Everyone froze. Even the strongest Zorak warriors shook with fear. Varkon felt cold sweat on his neck. We are not unstable. We are warriors. Rafe whispered. That is exactly why it targets you. Varkon turned, furious, but suddenly, the entire human fleet powered down even further. Their lights dimmed. Their weapons fully shut off. Their ships held a perfect formation, a single peaceful wall against the darkness. The move seemed to confuse the unknown enemy. The scanning pulse slowed. Rafe saw the moment of hesitation. It doesn't understand us, he murmured. Humans fight for defense, not for domination. It senses that, Varkun growled. And what do you want from us, human? Surrender? Weakness? No, Rafe said, meeting his eyes across the void. I want you to stay alive. Before the alien commander could retort, a new alarm blared across both fleets. Multiple objects approaching. From behind the unknown vessel, 12 smaller ships emerged, black, triangular, and just as silent. They looked like shards of the main vessel. Rafe whispered, drones. Varkon whispered back, hunters. The drones spread out, forming a perfect circle around the two fleets. They moved with a flawless harmony, emitting no sound, no heat. It was like watching death itself glide across the stars. One drone moved toward a Zorak destroyer. The destroyer's captain panicked and fired a missile. The missile hit the drone, and nothing happened. A second later, the destroyer vanished erased just like the one before it. Varkon's heart dropped. We are finished. Rafe shook his head. Not yet. There is one chance. He turned to his officers. Activate Project Lantern. The human officers hesitated. Even they were afraid. Sir? Once Lantern activates, we cannot hide anymore. I know, Rafe said, his gaze fixed on a massive unknown ship. On the Zorak bridge, Varkon shouted, What is Project Lantern? Rafe's voice was low and deliberate. A signal, meant to call something older than this enemy. Something that hates them. Varkun felt a deep chill. You mean another species? Yes, Rafe confirmed. A species humans met long ago. A species the galaxy forgot. Varkon stepped closer to the screen. You humans carry many secrets, Rafe nodded. We have to. No one protects us. So we protect ourselves. Before their argument could continue, the drones began to glow with a dark, pulsing light. They aimed at the human 7th Fleet. Varkon shouted, They prepare to erase you. No, Rafe said calmly. They prepare to test us. And then boom, a wave of energy shot from the unknown vessel. It wasn't an attack. It was a command. Every drone shot forward, straight at the human fleet. The Zorak soldiers watched in utter shock. Not a single human ship fired back. Not one missile. Not one laser. Humans stayed perfectly still. Varkon's eyes widened. They are trying to trust the enemy. No, Rafe said. We are showing them we are not like you. The drones stopped abruptly, just meters away from the human ships. Silence descended. Then the unknown vessel spoke once more. Humans, you show restraint. You are not priority prey. Varkon felt a surge of insult. Prey. Rafe ignored him and hailed the giant ship directly. What do you want? He demanded. The answer was cold and terrifying. We want order. Your war brings chaos. We remove chaos. Varkon shouted. You cannot control the galaxy. Correction, the voice replied. We already do. Suddenly, the unknown ship locked onto the refugee vessel carrying human civilians. Rafe's stomach dropped. Varkun gasped. They target your civilians now. Rafe's voice was full of ice. No, he said slowly. They are targeting our hope, And in that moment, the unknown vessel fired a beam straight at the refugee ship. The beam struck the human refugee ship, and the stars themselves seemed to scream. Fire ripped across its hull as alarms shrieked and civilians ran in terror. Watching from afar, the Zorak Dominion was horrified. This wasn't a battle for glory or territory. This was humans fighting for life itself. On the human flagship, Admiral Rafe's face was a mask of calm, but his eyes burned with fierce intensity. "Divert all power to the shields around the civilians," he ordered. In a breathtaking display of precision, the human fleet shifted, forming a protective golden dome around the refugee vessel. Lethal energy beams from the unknown attacker rippled across the shields, but the ship inside remained unharmed. Zorak Commander Varkun's jaw tightened. He had never seen such a strategy. The humans, though outgunned, moved with a discipline he could barely comprehend. "They are risking everything for one ship," Varkun muttered to his officer. "It's foolish," the officer whispered back. "Perhaps it is human." Sensing hesitation in the Zorak fleet, Admiral Rafe saw his opening. He sent a calm, direct message to Varkun. "We can survive this together, or die alone. Choose wisely." Pride screamed at Varkun to attack, to finally crush the humans. But the lives of his soldiers were on the line. Swallowing his pride, he growled, "Tell me your plan, human." Rafe's eyes never left the starfield. "We cannot fight them alone, but together we might survive." Varkun narrowed his eyes. "We join you, temporarily. Do not betray me." And just like that, an uneasy alliance was formed, born of desperation and mistrust. As their fleets created a layered barrier, the real battle began. Dozens of smaller enemy craft, like shards of black glass, emerged from behind the massive unknown ship. They darted through space with deadly precision. "Hold your fire," Rafe commanded both fleets. Violence only draws their wrath, but the Zorak couldn't resist. Their lasers flashed, missing every time. The enemy adapted instantly, moving faster, smarter. A beam struck a Zorak cruiser, and it didn't explode, it simply vanished. Panic erupted. Amid the chaos, Rafe's voice cut through the noise. "Focus! Protect the civilians. That is all that matters." The enemy's attention shifted, analyzing the panicked Zorak ships. Rafe pointed to the massive shadow of the enemy vessel. "Varkun, we need a boarding team. Send your strongest." It was a suicide mission, but it was their only hope. "Very well," Varkun agreed. "But I lead the team," Rafe nodded. Together, as the boarding pods launched, a mix of human and Zorak soldiers inside, silence fell across the battlefield. An energy pulse from the enemy nearly knocked them off course. But in that moment, something remarkable happened. Human and Zorak moved as one, adapting, protecting each other, and advancing toward the unknown. It wasn't just strategy. It was trust, forged in the heart of battle. And somewhere in the cold darkness of space, the enemy watched them curious, calculating, and perhaps intrigued. Space hung in a tense silence. Every ship, human and Zorak alike, held its breath as boarding pods crept toward the unknown vessel. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, a living ship, watching, judging. Black, shard-like drones circled the fleet, silent and hungry. On the human flagship, Admiral Rafe watched the sensors. With every beat, the unknown vessel was feeding on their data-scanning strategies, reading reactions, predicting their every move. This wasn't just a machine. It was a mind, and it was clever. Suddenly, a deep, metallic voice echoed across the fleet, shaking even the hardiest Zorak soldiers. "Humans, aliens, you think yourselves rulers of this sector. You are not. Surrender your ships. Your resistance is illogical. Humans cannot protect your allies." Varkun's claws gripped the railing. "Humans cannot protect us," he roared. "We'll see about that." Rafe didn't flinch. He calmly leaned toward the communication console. Listen closely, Varkon. That message is exactly what we expected. The Zorak commander froze. Expected? You knew? Rafe nodded. This enemy is old. It observes civilizations, predicts behavior, and manipulates fear. It's trying to make us doubt ourselves. But we were prepared. For months. Project Lantern is almost online. On the human ships, hidden consoles flickered to life. The civilian transport, thought to be helpless, was secretly an advanced tech hub. Quietly, unnoticed, energy pulses began to hum. The broadcast continued. Your actions are inefficient. Your shields will collapse. Your allies will perish. The words were meant to crush morale. Instead, they hardened resolve. Rafe's voice cut through the fear, calm and commanding. Every plan we make is to protect lives, not to conquer. That is why we survive. That is why we will endure. Alarms blared. The enemy vessel fired a pulse not at the ships, but at space itself, warping gravity. Sir, anomalies detected. It's reshaping the battlefield, an officer yelled. Rafe's jaw tightened. Not reshaping. Testing. It expects chaos. We give them discipline. We give them compassion. Varkon watched, amazed. And you are not afraid? Fear is useless here, Rafe said. We have a weapon they cannot predict. Not lasers. Not shields. Hope. Deep within the civilian ship, Project Lantern activated. A field of golden light expanded. A barrier of pure protective energy, enveloping the refugees and reaching for the fleet. The unknown vessel paused. This was unexpected. Protecting civilians, risking everything, showing no aggression. It didn't compute. Its voice returned with a hint of confusion. Humans, you protect inefficiently, and yet survive. Rafe's lips curved. Not inefficiently, wisely. The unknown vessel pulsed again, focusing on the civilian ship, but the lantern shields held strong. Rafe's voice rang out. Varkon, do you see? Compassion is our strength. That is why humans survive. Then, the enemy did something no one expected. It moved closer, circling the civilian ship, observing, analyzing. Rafe's eyes narrowed. It has seen our unity. It may be learning, but it cannot destroy what it cannot understand. The voice came again, softer, hesitant. Humans, protect, illogical, but dangerous. A tense silence fell. The enemy had paused. It was not defeated, but it was not advancing. Rafe turned to Varkon. This is our chance. Together, we can learn its weakness before it strikes again. In the vast darkness of space, the unknown vessel waited, calculating and perhaps beginning to respect the humans it could not break. In the cold, unforgiving void of space, a single human civilian ship glowed like a small sun. For months, both human and Zorak forces had watched it, believing it to be just another refugee vessel, a fragile ark carrying families fleeing the chaos of war. They were wrong. And as its true purpose awakened, the fate of the galaxy would be forever changed. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Rafe's eyes were locked on the sensor readings. Project Lantern is active, he announced, his voice steady. Shields are holding, but the civilians, they're only the beginning. Standing beside him, the Zorak commander, Varkon, leaned closer to the holoscreen, his alien features a mask of confusion. Beginning? What do you mean? A small, confident smile touched Rafe's lips. This ship isn't just a refuge, Varkon. It's a weapon. Varkon's claws clenched. A weapon? You would risk civilians for a weapon? Rafe's expression hardened, but his voice remained calm. No, we protect civilians asterisk with asterisk the weapon. We don't use lives as shields. Our hearts are the shield. Just then, the refugee ship shuddered. Deep within its hull, a massive, hidden energy matrix, a secret project years in the making hummed to life. Golden light pulsed along the ship's corridors like veins of pure energy. A low, resonant pulse began to emanate outward, an invisible wave that washed over every human ship in the fleet. Varkon's eyes widened in disbelief. The enemy drones, which had been moving with deadly precision, suddenly faltered. A colossal alien mothership itself flickered, its advanced calculations thrown into chaos by a force it simply couldn't comprehend. Rafe's captain shouted, his voice filled with awe. "Sir? The energy field? It's massive. It's protecting the whole fleet." Rafe nodded. The civilians were never our weak point. They were the key. This ship is a mobile shield generator, capable of covering entire fleets, planets, even sectors. Varkon swallowed hard. He had seen humans achieve the impossible, but this was beyond imagination. A simple ship built for survival had just become the strongest defensive weapon in the known galaxy. "Humans, you risked everything to save them?" Varkon whispered. Rafe's gaze was like steel. "We don't abandon our own. Not civilians, not soldiers. That is why we win. That is why we survive." Suddenly, the mysterious enemy vessel reacted. Its dark surface rippled, and its swarm of drones moved with frenzied desperation. Every predictive algorithm, every combat simulation it relied upon, had failed. For the first time, this unknown, all-powerful enemy hesitated. A booming, metallic voice echoed across the battlefield, laced with static. "Humans, illogical, yet dangerous. Now you understand, Varkon," Rafe said, his voice ringing across the comms. "Compassion isn't a weakness. Protecting life doesn't make us vulnerable. It makes us strong." The enemy ship pulsed, preparing a counterattack, but it was too late. The civilian ship's energy field expanded, creating a shimmering dome of protection so powerful that nothing could penetrate it. One by one, the drones smashed against the shield and were repelled, their energy cascading harmlessly into the void. "Impossible," Varkon breathed. "They are still." "Alive and controlling it? Yes," Rafe replied quietly. "We fight to survive, but we fight to protect. That is the difference. That is why humans endure." Inside the civilian ship, families huddled together, completely unaware of the incredible power radiating from their vessel. But in the engineering bay, teams worked tirelessly, monitoring energy flows, stabilizing the matrix, and ensuring the fleet's shield never faltered. This wasn't just technology. It was human ingenuity, courage, and foresight, forged into an unstoppable force for life. The enemy vessel let out a roar that seemed to shake the stars, its metallic voice trembling with frustration. "Humans. Shields cannot be." Before it could finish, the human fleet moved. With the civilian ship as their living shield, every pilot, every officer, acted in perfect unison. The enemy drones scattered, unable to land a single blow. The massive alien ship, more powerful than any single fleet, was forced to retreat, its processors failing to calculate this new, illogical variable. Rafe turned to Varkon. "This is why we survive. We don't fight for glory. We fight for everyone. Strength comes from unity, from hope, from compassion. That is our weapon. That is our power." For the first time, Varkon saw humans not as rivals, but as beings of incredible resilience, fighting for something bigger than themselves. Somewhere in the dark heart of the enemy vessel, its algorithms spun, trying to quantify the unquantifiable. It could not calculate the human heart. Rafe whispered to his crew, "This battle is far from over, but today we've shown them something important. Humans protect their own. Always." The fleet's shields shimmered, golden and unbreakable, as the unknown enemy faltered. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was a turning point. And in that moment, the galaxy learned a lesson it would never forget. Never, ever underestimate humanity. In the cold vacuum of space, a monstrous shadow loomed over the combined fleets. Its black surface pulsed like living metal, radiating a power that threatened to crush everything. On the human flagship, Admiral Rafe stood firm, his eyes fixed on the enemy. His fleet held the line, protecting the civilian refugee ship behind their lantern shields. But the unknown vessel was relentless. It adapted, recalculated, and now tested their final strength. On the holoscreen, the Zorak commander, Varkon, watched the humans maneuver with perfect coordination. "Rafe, this is madness," he warned. "You cannot destroy that ship alone." Rafe shook his head. "We don't need to destroy it. We need to survive it. And we need to show them why humans endure." Suddenly, a warning blared. The enemy had locked onto the refugee ship, unleashing multiple energy beams. Shields flared, absorbing the strikes, but the strain was immense. Rafe's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "Divert 40% of all energy from our ship's engines to the lantern shields. We protect the civilians first, always." Pilots scrambled, rerouting power. The human ships formed a protective web, a dance of deadly precision. "Are you insane?" Varkon yelled. "Your fleet will be destroyed." Rafe's lips curved slightly. "We have no other choice." Explosions rocked space as the enemy's drones tore through the Zorak lines, but the humans held firm. Not one ship faltered. "This is it." Rafe's voice echoed across the fleet. "We fight not for ourselves, but for life." A massive energy wave swept across them, but still the fleet held. "Now," Rafe commanded, "deploy the boarding teams." Pods launched, carrying mixed squads of human marines and Zorak warriors. Their mission: board the enemy ship and disable it from within. They weaved through a storm of fire, pressing forward relentlessly. Inside the vessel, humans and Zoraks fought side by side, a perfect union of strategy and strength. Suddenly, a massive beam hit the civilian ship. The shields flickered. "Focus all remaining power on the lantern shields." "Now!" Rafe roared. Energy flowed like molten gold, and the shields glowed brighter, pushing back the assault. Varkon watched, astonished. They are enduring." Rafe's gaze was unyielding. "We fight for life, Varkon. That is why we survive." A massive explosion erupted from within the enemy ship. The boarding teams had reached the core. The vessel faltered, its systems failing. The human fleet surged forward, unleashing a final, coordinated barrage. The unknown vessel let out one last pulse before retreating into the void, battered and beaten. Varkon's voice was quiet, full of awe. "I underestimated you humans. You fight not just with weapons, but with your hearts." Rafe nodded, tired but resolute. "Compassion is our weapon. Hope is our shield. Unity is our strength." The stars stretched endlessly beyond them, silent witnesses to a fleet that had fought not for conquest, but for the unbreakable human spirit. The battlefield fell silent. Across the endless void, stars glittered like distant diamonds, their light catching on the lazy smoke that drifted from shattered ships. The unknown enemy had retreated, leaving behind a trail of black shards and a chilling reminder of the threat that still lurked in the galaxy. Admiral Rafe stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying the remnants of the battle. His fleet was battered, but the civilians were safe. The Zorak allies were alive. And hope. Hope now glimmered stronger than ever before. A hollow image flickered to life on the main screen. It was Varkon, the Zorak commander. His armor was scorched, his pride bruised, but his eyes held something new: respect. "Humans, I feared your strength. I feared your methods." He began, his voice rough. "But now I understand. You fight not only with weapons, but with heart. That is something I have never seen." Rafe's expression softened. "We fight because we must protect life, Varkon. That is our honor, our strength, and our pride. We do not abandon anyone." Across the fleet, a remarkable sight unfolded. Human ships sent repair drones to the damaged Zorik vessels. Pilots shared supplies, engineers worked side by side, and soldiers exchanged silent nods of mutual respect. For the first time, humans and aliens were not just allies in name, they were partners in survival. Below decks on the civilian ship, families began to emerge from their hiding places. The soft laughter of children echoed in the corridors, a sound of pure relief. Mothers and fathers held each other tightly, tears of gratitude in their eyes. For the first time in weeks, they felt safe. Rafe walked along his bridge, his crew watching him in silence. "Today," he said, his voice quiet but firm, "we proved something important. The galaxy will not always see us as the strongest or the cleverest, but they will remember one thing: humans endure. We protect life, we stand together, and we fight for hope, no matter the cost." Varkon's voice returned, quiet and reflective. "I doubted you. I underestimated humans, but now I see that your compassion is your weapon. Your courage is unmatched. You do not fight to destroy, you fight to protect. That is dangerous. That is admirable." Rafe nodded. "It is dangerous because it cannot be calculated. It cannot be predicted. And that is why we survive when others fail." The Zorak commander looked out at the stars. "Perhaps humans are the future. Perhaps the galaxy will remember your name for centuries to come." Rafe's smile was faint but resolute. "Perhaps. But we do not fight for fame. We fight for life. That is what makes us human." Suddenly, the fleet's sensors chirped. A blip in the distance. The unknown vessel had not vanished. It was lurking at the edge of the sector, watching, calculating, perhaps reconsidering its judgment of this strange, resilient species. Its power was vast, but it had learned a crucial lesson. Humans cannot be broken. Rafe turned to his fleet. "We have survived, but we must remain vigilant. The galaxy is vast, and threats will always rise. But remember this: our strength is not just in our ships or our weapons. It is in our hearts, in our willingness to protect, to endure, to hope. That is why we survive." Varkon nodded, a rare humility crossing his face. "Then I will follow you, Rafe. If you can survive this, perhaps together we can face whatever comes next." Rafe extended a virtual hand across the hololink. "Together," he said. "Always together when it matters most." The human fleet moved forward, battered but unbroken, escorting the refugee ships toward a distant safe zone. As they sailed through the void, Rafe thought of every life saved, every soldier who had fought, and the enduring human spirit that refused to be extinguished. Varkon spoke one last time, almost to himself. "Humans, you do not fight for power or territory or pride. You fight for something greater. You fight for hope. That is why you are dangerous. That is why you endure." Rafe nodded. "And that, my friend, is why humans always win when it matters most." The fleet sailed onward, toward an unknown future, united and victorious. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. It had witnessed humanity standing tall in the darkness, unyielding, compassionate, and proud. And somewhere, in the depths of space, the unknown enemy retreated, knowing with certainty that it would never underestimate them again. See you next time.